to behave.
Hey there, welcome to What is Health. I was trying to catch praise dancing there, but I missed it. And
I can do it again.
yeah, and we were putting on the microphones, and I was starting to talk about what we might talk about, and you quite rightly said, stop.
Yeah.
Wait till we press record. And
Yeah.
you're quite right. I need to basically walk through the door and press record.
Okay.
Anyway, so I always say at the start, it's really clunky when you're starting these things off, but the reason I invited you on is you're a student on our MSc nursing program, and on LinkedIn you have a blog, and I was reading it today, I really liked the blog where you were talking about summarising and storytelling, and you were telling this story.
Yeah.
So can you tell me where the idea for the blog started?
Oh. So it was in 2017. I had just started my uni. Mm-hmm. And I was in a new... So it's a story that you can ask for details if you want to. So I wanted to study medicine and surgery, but then I didn't get the course.
Okay.
So I did a 1-year diploma, like another A level.
Yeah.
Hoping I could get into medicine and surgery again, but I didn't get into medicine and surgery again.
Lucky us.
Yeah. And so I started school, the same school, but I joined in the second year because I had A levels and sort of did like a conversion. So rather than starting from my first year, I started from my second year. And in my second year, I felt very new because there were students already, and I was just joining. And so that was like an outlet for me, and it was also my first time, like my second time outside home and all of, the community I was used to. So the blog was like a journal for me to let things out. And
so
that's
has
how it started.
It's been going for a while
yes,
then?
Since
okay.
2017.
Because we connected on LinkedIn about 6 months ago, and you're building this network, and it's fantastic, and it's really nice. I love LinkedIn. Everyone thinks it's purely work, but I don't think it is. I think there's a certain type of narrative on LinkedIn that's very different to other social media platforms.
I think LinkedIn is filled with professionals, and so they try to present this type of professional outlook. And don't make it too personal, just make it professional. And there's me who is telling stories on LinkedIn.
I quite like that. I think I've got a problem with authority. So whenever I see that, I tend to get a little bit sort of
rebellious.
Cheeky. But I really liked that. So I was reading your blog, and the idea of there was someone you were talking to, and you were sort of being told off and not getting to the point.
Yes.
And someone said, hold on a minute, there's meaning within that story. And I guess that's really what this podcast is about. It's about health possibly means different things to different people. Yeah. So could you just tell me, I suppose we've jumped ahead a little bit about your sort of formative years, your childhood, so that we can perhaps better understand praise now?
I rehearsed this. I knew you were going to ask, but now everything has gone off. But I grew up in a large family. I would say we were roughly 20.
Wow.
It's a long story.
Okay.
But then I separated to my immediate family, 5. Okay. We turned 5. Yeah. And it was a very large house. I don't know if you know Loud House on Nickelodeon. Like it was a really loud house. Okay. And it was fun. Yeah. And but it had its challenges. Like there was the age gap. You had really older uncles and aunties, and then there was you, the little one. And it was very adventurous, I would say. I was very naughty. But my mom was always very particular about me. She always felt like there was more I could be than just a naughty child. And then she was quite big on that.
I can't imagine the version of praise that is a naughty child.
Very naughty.
Okay.
I was naughty. I was climbing tables but I think when my mom had me, so we were living in Lagos, Nigeria. Lagos, Nigeria is like a city in Nigeria. And then she got a job in Abuja. Abuja is the capital city, but it's quite expensive. I think this is the story of how we became a large house. And so she spoke with her sister, because I'm the fourth of 5 children, and she had just had me, and she spoke with her sister and said, can I let the others stay with you while I take her to Abuja? Because the cost of living is high, and maybe we'll see how I get on from there. And so for the first few years of my life, I only knew my mom.
Okay.
I didn't know I had siblings because I was really young. Wow. But then I started going for holidays in Lagos, and then I realized, oh, I have 3 other siblings.
What age was this? Sort of that you had this realization, oh, there's more.
Maybe 4.
Okay, right.
Yeah. And they were different because I felt different. It was just weird. It was a weird thing. And then when I was 6, I remember my mom had to travel for her master's and then shipped me back to Lagos with my auntie. And so that's where I lived in a large family. I feel like I've rambled, but I hope you've gotten the story.
The entire purpose of this is to ramble. I don't know if people have noticed, but there's not an awful lot of editing goes on.
Oh yeah, I noticed. Because in the one with Paul, you said we'll edit that, and I was hearing that. I'm like, if you edit that, I shouldn't be hearing. We will edit that. So it wasn't edited.
No, it's purely my laziness and also my I don't know how to do it. So I press start, and I hope someone doesn't say anything illegal, and then I press finish and I publish it 4 minutes later. Boom. Okay, right. So I suppose in terms of this big family, and your mum sounds very driven to sort of go off and do her MSc. What sort of effect did that have on you, seeing her sort of be that? To my mind, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
You're very calm about those sort of choices. But were you aware of how much she was sort of arranging and giving up to sort of...
No, at the time I didn't know. 2 years is a long time in a child's life.
Yeah.
Because she traveled to the UK for a master's, and it was for 2 years. And my younger sister was quite young when she did that. And when my mom came back, my younger sister didn't recognize my mom. And we had to tell her, this is your mom, and she was crying, I don't know this woman. So 2 years is really a long time in a child's life. But at the time, I didn't know what that meant, because again, I was a very playful child. So it was off you go, bye. And 2 years later, she's back and she looked different. It was just weird. But yeah, it was very much later I realized the sacrifices she had to make for that decision, and why that decision was important for us. Because as you go higher in the more degrees you have, the more you value in Nigeria. So an MSc, if it's needed, you earn more. You can climb up the career ladder, and so that was good for her, because that meant we had more money.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, it's a thing. So where did this? My perception of you is you're very dedicated and very driven, as many of our students are. And where did that come from? You're describing this kind of naughty, mischievous child, which I'm sure changed and all of that. But where did this kind of drive to progress? You mentioned medicine and that. Where did that come from?
I think it was my mom. So I was really, I would say, intelligent. So it was interesting, because as much as I played, I came out top of my class, or second to the top of my class, or third to the top of my class. And that's why she thought, if you put in more effort, I think you would do more. But the problem was, it didn't give me time to find myself. I just wanted to prove to her at some point in my life that I could, be composed and orderly and all of that.
What you say, prove?
Yeah.
So was that you just wanted her to see that you were sort of trying, or was there something driving that you wanted to prove to her? Was it a feeling of responsibility, or was it just that you were inspired because of her actions?
I don't know. Now that you say it that way, I think because we grew up, because it was all of it. So I wanted to prove to her. At the same time, because I grew up in a large family, I was very naughty, and that was the only thing, that was like my compensation for Sorry, for being naughty.
I still can't imagine this. But
yeah, it was like my compensation for being naughty. So I could get away with something at least. Oh, she's coming first in class. So even though she's catching all the tables, we would forgive her for that. Something like that. I think so. I'm not too sure. But I think it was a mix of both of them.
And then at some point, you've sort of had this aspiration to do some further education. You thought medicine. What was the sort of transition point where you eventually arrived here to do nursing? And how did you feel about that if you'd originally thought medicine and now I'm sort of like refocusing?
I think with Nigeria or with my family, they wanted you to study the A-list courses. Either you're a medical doctor or a lawyer or a pilot, or it was just a cliche, like the ones that would, you know, and it was a thing for prestige for families. So my mom, maybe she's in a party, says, oh, you don't know my daughter is a medical doctor in the United Kingdom. And that was a thing of pride for them.
Sure.
And so that was really what made me want to study medicine, because at the time I didn't know what I wanted to do. It was just normal. You're done with secondary school, going to uni. What course would I study? It was a no-brainer. Medicine and surgery. There was no other option for me, because I didn't think there were other options. And at the time, I hadn't, you know, throughout my secondary school, there was nothing else I thought I could do than work as a doctor or be a doctor.
See, and that's really interesting, because I think there's a little parallel perhaps in lots of people's lives where you're living slightly someone else's story. I felt that. I felt that in my family, that perhaps I grew into my story, and until that point I was sort of living a little bit of the one that my family had created for me.
Yeah.
Okay. So when was the kind of like, oh, I'm doing nursing now? Was it like a moment, or did you just slowly sort of evolve into that idea?
I think I've always been very compassionate, and I didn't know what to do with it. So it was like, I won't say an emotion, but it was a quality that no one taught me how to manage. And so I'm going on the road, I see something that's not nice, and it ruins my entire day. Or I see a child on the street begging, and it ruins my entire day. I'm like, why is the world this way? What can we help? And so I started like that, and maybe that's one of the reasons why I started the blog. And then when I was in my uni, I had this picture of what I wanted university to be for me, but it wasn't it. It was a lot of students in class. I wanted that space for me to learn, and it wasn't there, so I started to do other things. So I settled for tutorials rather than going to classes. And so I wasn't going to classes all the time. Sorry, Mom. And then, then
you were pursuing your style of learning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I did tutorials, after school tutorials, and then I started to explore other things like entrepreneurship, leadership. I enrolled in courses, management courses. My mom wasn't aware. And then we started the charity in my undergrad, in my final year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that was the avenue for me to learn about compassion and how to, you know, it's good to be compassionate, but then you have to, compassionate can lead you in trouble if you don't know how to handle it.
Okay.
So take for instance, you find somebody who needs something, you need to follow the right steps to help them. Who are your parents? You don't just do things, you just have to. It's like a legal order, so to speak, if that's the word.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's compassion in itself is desirable, but it's, for me, sometimes it needs to be coupled up with kind of knowledge and a kind of pragmatism in how can I help.
Yes.
It can be a bit of a hindrance if that's all you've got and you don't have the tools to sort of support the person you're caring for, and all you are is compassionate. I suppose that's where it's different to being a nurse or being perhaps just a member of the public that's there to listen.
Yeah. I did see a tweet on Twitter where the person mentioned, and I think it stuck with me, he said, I don't want a compassionate nurse, I want a competent nurse. And it struck a chord, because it's like, if you're compassionate but you don't have the right skills to help me in that moment, then what would your compassion do?
Yeah, it needs to serve a function. And also there's a bit of preservation there perhaps. My compassion has been a bit of an enemy at some times in my nursing journey. You talked about noticing a child that perhaps is hungry or something like that, and how you manage that in your nursing journey whilst not feeling like you're dead inside.
Yeah.
You know, that's a difficult relationship for some nurses.
Yeah.
Interesting. Can you tell me a bit more about the charity? When you're talking, there's loads of things, and my memory's so poor, I go, remember that, come back to that. Tell me a bit more about this charity.
So we found a charity. So Lagos State is a very big city. It's a bubbly city. It's fun. It's like the night. It's like London when you think about London. So that's what it is in Nigeria. And then we suddenly found in Lagos State this very remote, I won't say village, but a remote group of people living beside the ocean. Is it ocean now?
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, but it's a body of water. What's it called now? No.
Google it. Google it.
It wasn't an ocean, but yeah. What's it called?
Lake?
So no, it wasn't lake. But it's not ocean.
We need to do more geography.
Yeah. Beside the body of water.
That'll work.
And I think based on the history, they like to live beside the body of water because they are predominantly fishermen and women. So they like to fish. But the problem was their living condition and how much, even in a city like Lagos State, they could be there, no one would know. It was a very, I won't say appalling state to live in, but it wasn't so nice. And so we decided that this is what we wanted to do. We wanted to, and most of the people in the community were children. And it seems like because there wasn't so much to do, they were having kids. Lots of kids.
And that's on your, I've noticed on your LinkedIn, Fred, that you've got a lot of, I mean, you're an adult, you're doing adult nursing. And sometimes, especially, we can have this perception, I'm doing adult nursing, kids don't apply. But there's a lot of references to children on your feed, in your LinkedIn profile. Is that just you're naturally drawn, I suppose we are as humans, naturally drawn to supporting young, vulnerable people, or is there a particular reason for that?
I feel like the childhood really defines, I won't say defines, but plays a role in how we grow into adulthood. And essentially it's about me learning my past. There were so many things I didn't understand as a child, and I'm starting to understand as an adult. I struggled with, I won't say identity crisis, but it was a thing of, oh my God, what's happening to me? It was a thing of I hadn't found myself, and I wanted to find myself, and so I started to go back into my childhood and what it is like to be a child and learn again. And so that's why I make reference to childhood and working with the charity, seeing the kids, and sometimes in some of the kids, I kind of see myself. I see a naughty child, and it seems like in the classroom when we are doing the creative class, sit down, please, can you sit down? And the child decides not to sit down. And then I'm reminded again, how would I treat this child if it was me, the younger me? How would I treat the child? Would I be frustrated, or would I, correct in love? And so that's what it is really.
It's easy to forget that, isn't it? My daughter's 17, and sometimes I have to be careful. She's never going to watch this. But sometimes I think, for goodness sake, and then I think, hold on a second, and I sort of retrace my steps to what I was like then. And I just think, well, she's doing an incredible job compared to that version of Jason. To me, it's sort of like, that wasn't that long ago, but it's a huge journey that you go through to shape where you are now. Okay, so you've arrived at nursing. And you've made this choice. Can you tell me a little bit about your sort of experiences of sort of forming into this sort of nursing role?
So when I started to explore in my uni, I started to explore. So one of the programs I enrolled in, you had to think of a business idea. And at the time, I started to, in my second year, it's a big family. And one of my aunts had come to live with us, and she had dementia. And we struggled to look after her. Because it wasn't something it wasn't something we were used to. We've been used to, taking care of all elderly not patients, members of the family. But this was different because she could ask you what the time was a million times, and you're wondering what's happening. Or you're leading her to her room, and she's going the other way. And so I started to research, and that's when I started to Google. Because I didn't know it was dementia at the time. I'm not still sure if it's dementia. It could be Alzheimer's. And so I started to read about it, and then coincidentally, my life now revolved around that. In school, because I studied cell biology and genetics, I started to read about the cellular component, the plaques, and all of those things. I was doing every other thing but what I was supposed to do in school. But and then that was my idea, a day center for the elderly. And it got me into the school because it was a business school and your idea had to be top notch for you to get into it. I got into the school, my business was registered, I was trained and everything. And then it was after the school I was supposed to start the business. But there was something missing. I didn't have that experience with the adults, with the elderly. And so I worked as a carer. So I first of all shadowed the CEO of a care home. And rather than shadowing the CEO of the care home, I found myself with the care coordinators. How do you match carers to clients? And there's a different terrain in Nigeria because we also match the language. So can you speak the elders' language, the tribe, just because communication is as important as the care you give.
You said that in your blog. And
I did?
Yeah, the bit that I was reading, you said that you were speaking in your tribe language, but you're having some difficulty with that.
Yeah, I have difficulty with that. Yeah, I'm not very fluent.
Okay.
Yeah. And when I struggled when I worked in the care home because the major language they spoke was Yoruba. Because in the West, that's where I was. And so I struggled. And I wasn't sure if that was for me. Because I'm trying to communicate with this elder. She's speaking to me in Yoruba. I clearly understand what you're saying, but I can't respond. So it's like, it was just, I felt very ashamed of myself. Because I'm from this tribe, I'm from this place, and I couldn't speak. And that was why I decided I was going to learn even more.
So you felt ashamed?
Yeah.
Tell me, you're able to tell me a little bit more about that?
Imagine you're from England.
Yep.
You've lived all your life in England, but you can't speak English.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Well, that's different because English is like the only language you speak, isn't it? Do you speak other languages?
No. I think I always grew up with this. I always grew up with this sense of, and I think probably a lot of people identify with this, of not feeling that English people had a culture. It's really odd. It's really odd, and I've sort of thought about it a lot, and I definitely do, 100% do. But perceiving culture as something that was related to other people, and I always wanted it. I wanted that feeling of like, I really admire it. I think it's amazing, like to go, this is my thing. Yeah. So maybe I've got a bit of a gap in my sort of empathy for what you're talking for that.
I think you do have a culture, because when we think about your style of your dressing, or I feel like shirts and ties, and it's very very English. Well, no ties, but like a proper shirt.
Okay. I think you're right. I should dress up like an English gentleman with a cane.
Yeah. That's very English. Well, that's what we used to see in the books when we were younger. Or stuff like your food, like mashed potatoes. I don't know. It's very typical to.
But that feeling of connectivity, and is that what you're saying? You sort of didn't quite feel that you belonged as rigidly as you should have done, and you felt a little bit like, I should fully fit here, but I have a little bit where I don't.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't care anymore, but it used to bother me then. Or you were in a family gathering and you can't. It was just that where, or at some point it became a thing of. I remember one time I went to the market and I was speaking English to this seller, and she was, I won't say insulting me, but she was really saying things in the language like. This one is speaking English. Why are you speaking English? Speak Yoruba. And I could hear what she was saying, but if I tried to respond, I would give her more power to insult me because I wouldn't even speak well the language. And so it used to bother me then, but now I'm unbothered.
No, okay, no. So yeah. And I suppose that's part of, probably a lot of the stuff I say it slightly jovially. It's sort of a reflection on, and maybe that's part of growing older, is being okay with the bits that aren't quite, it's just part of you. Yeah. Okay, so a few times in our discussions, you've mentioned spirituality.
What? You really read my blog. Well done, JC.
Yeah. Is that? I find it fascinating. Is that something we can talk about?
Sure, we can.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about how spirituality or religion or something like that influences your life?
Well, growing up, my mother wouldn't take decisions without talking to God first. And it was something we learnt by she would say, pray. If you wanted to ask my mom for something, she'd say, have you prayed to God first before asking me for it? And I think essentially what she was trying to do was teach us to, I really don't know, but what I think it was trying to understand the problem first, try and solve it yourself first, before coming to mommy. Come to mommy when you feel like you can do it.
Yeah, and I don't know if you agree, but I think sometimes there's a bit of a misconception of the functionality of praying, and what it sort of theoretically does. There's the serenity prayer, isn't there? Accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and it's about things that I can change and acceptance and that sort of balance, and it's reflected in a lot of mental health therapies, are about that. It's about, well, you can't change that bit, accept it, and you can change that bit. So what is it? What does it look like? And how are you going to perhaps deal with that? Does it influence your sort of day-to-day life in terms of your studies? How does it help?
Yeah, I do. Like, I pray before stepping out of the house. I'm going to class. I'm like, God, whatever I'm going to learn, help me absorb it faster. It's just like a communion with God. I don't know how to put it, but yeah, that's it. I grew up in the church. I was a church girl. At some point, I questioned Christianity. I still do. I question some aspects of religion in general, but essentially, it's what I've stuck to. So many things in religion and all of it that I'm still trying to figure out. But one thing that I have stuck with is just having a relationship with God and sort of like talking to God. And that has helped me, especially moving here where there was no one, there was no family. And so it was just, sometimes I feel like I'm talking to myself. But most times I get discomfort after prayer and I feel like maybe I'm not alone. And that's what it's been for me so far.
Yeah, okay. So it's something that is incredibly constructive to you, not just on a sort of personal level, but you're talking about the sort of social aspects of it as well. Is that right? Or is it more about?
Yeah, I think, social aspect, the mental health aspect. I feel like with the new advent of the virtual space and virtual communities, it's taking a lot of things away from us in terms of communities, gatherings, and physically meeting people. I used to grow up in, if I had a very tough day, I looked forward to going to church to go away from all of that and be a different person in church. It just gave us another room for expression, and I feel like that is slowly being taken out.
I wonder if we're going for a phase. That's my hope. On a personal level, I'm sure the online transition suits some people. Maybe I'll speak to someone that it does, but it's really hard not to notice the profound effects that sort of COVID and the lockdowns had in transitioning us to a more remote way of communicating. And there's parts of me that are a bit lazy and like that.
Me too.
Yeah. So I'm not really, I haven't got the brain space for people today. I've done it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks like I've been social.
Yeah.
But actually, I just, I know it's not good for me.
Yeah.
Too much of that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Be very interested to hear anyone that's very good for.
Tell me, how about you? How do you?
Oh, the interview.
Sorry.
Here we go.
I remember there was a time we had a conversation, and I was talking about. Was it spirituality? I think somebody in class said, "Oh, we were fasting," and then you said, "Oh, I do some aspects of spiritual exercises also," and then you mentioned stuff like meditation, and I remember very well. You know, you're a very demonstrative person. You move your hands when you're trying. Not that way, but you do stuff like you bring us into your mind, and then we can sort of follow Jason. And then
sorry about that.
No, it's good. I like it. And then I remember that day you said, I feel the way my feet touch the ground when and I could imagine Jason walking and feeling his feet touching the ground. Yeah, because you did describe that. So how, I don't know, tell me about it, but we didn't have time to talk more.
Yeah, sure. So I suppose I think learning for me, I can't do sort of didactic, listen, absorb facts and learn. I need context. And part of that context is sometimes the person who's facilitating the discussion giving a bit of themselves. And I think there's I don't know that I have any other way of doing it. I've tried the rigidly professional version and it just doesn't fit me. Yeah. I can't do it. And I'm just running with the version that comes out. And I suppose in nursing, it's what frustrates me about spirituality and religion is that they're often intertwined as one thing. And as you've clearly said, even religion, even a specific denomination of religion, it's still going to mean different things to different people.
Yeah.
I'm pretty certain of that.
It is. Yeah.
Even if you have a really rigid boundary to it, I'm sure you still have a bit of variance in that. So for me, spirituality is about my relationship with other people, my relationship with myself, and sort of having that feeling of a higher meaning. And I think that's where nursing has been really therapeutic to me. Not always easy, but therapeutic. I was saying this to sixth form students the other day. They were saying, what's the good thing about your job and what's the bad thing? And I said, well, they're the same thing. Because all of the bad things about my work as a nurse are also the good things. Because it's this friction in your job where if it was all good, I'd feel a bit pointless. It gives me purpose and meaning, and so there we go, we fell down that.
But I learned something new.
So spirituality, I just think people make this jump from spirituality to religion, God and religion and that sort of thing, and then they make another jump as well about this sort of autocracy of beliefs and spirituality. I just think
for you essentially it's your relationship with other people and with yourself and the higher meaning.
Having sort of learning. I suppose it's kind of hard to define it, but maybe this feeling of progressing. And maybe there's a problem with that as well.
No, maybe there isn't.
Do you think?
Yeah, maybe there isn't. I feel like that's what I take, for instance, my idea of Christianity. If I spoke to somebody else about it, they would think I'm not practicing Christianity.
Okay.
I feel like Christianity, it's just about relationship essentially, and I feel like it's just now like a system rather than a relationship. And now if I say that to somebody else, and like you're waffling, it doesn't make any sense. So I feel like it's what it is to you, and it's essentially that it is working for you. That's what I think.
I'd go with that.
As long as it's working for you.
But I think the feet on the ground thing is so often in nursing, and I felt this, I felt like I have to constantly be doing something, and sometimes that stillness and acceptance is the hardest thing to do, but sometimes it's actually the most productive in terms of allowing me to kind of think through my actions, allowing someone else that is receiving my care to know that they don't always have to be doing and achieving, and sometimes just kind of pausing. So, storytelling. Yeah?
Yeah.
I've sort of been really enjoying this story, and as it's sort of unwinding the version of praise that I know, the contemporary version is making a bit more sense.
Yeah.
What in terms of health do you think is really important to you? Are you able to sort of focus in on perhaps 3 things or aspects that, in terms of, is it something you think about? Maybe it's not even something that you think about.
I thought hard
Do
about it.
we have to delete like, not his health?
When I got the email, I thought hard. 3 words. I think maybe at this stage of my life, I feel like health changes as you grow. What it means to you changes as you grow, as you mature. I feel like for now it's adventure. It's exploring what life has got to offer. I think that's it. I've lived a very adventurous life in terms of places.
Okay, yeah.
In Nigeria, in Nigeria, after you finish from university, you have like a paramilitary service where you serve the country with your new skill.
Right.
And it has a history in, nation building. And most often than not, people like to stay where they've studied or where their home is. I wanted to go out of it, and I wanted to go to a remote area. And everyone kicked against it. My mom was like, are you sure about what you say? And I'm like, I've never been so sure of something. And I did. I left. I lived in a remote area. I saw a very different life. Even though I contemplated my decision in the first 2 months, I still stayed back and I totally enjoyed it. And I thought to myself, if I didn't take this adventure, I wouldn't experience this.
Why did you want to do that? What drew you to that choice?
I feel like it's just experiencing another aspect of life. I've been very privileged, and I wanted to see, in some sense, I have an idea of what it is like, but I just wanted something different. And even when I got into the States, there were so many places I could live, but I chose the remote area. It was a very risky decision to make, really.
In hindsight.
In hindsight, it was a very risky decision to make. But I did. I stayed there. I lived in this interesting house, like made of clay. It was nice. It wasn't nice in the beginning, but it was nice at the end, drawing water from the well. It was, and for me, it was adventure. I loved it. But to somebody else, like when I was saying my story when I came back, everyone was like, nah, I wouldn't do that.
Really? It's my idea of heaven.
Like, yeah.
Wow.
So adventure, explore life. Maybe because I'm young, and I feel like maybe even when I'm older, I'll still keep exploring. Because of what use is it to come to life and just...
How old are you?
25.
25? My goodness, you've done a lot. Okay, carry on.
Yeah, what use is it to come to life and just do things because the system is defining what to do for you? Let's just explore within the boundaries of what is legal and what is ethical, of course. But express yourself, find yourself. I always say you can live 5 lives in 1 life.
This really neatly fits in with your story, this idea of storytelling. And I suppose life is a bit of a story, isn't it? We're all going to get to our sort of later years and be reflecting on this story that's unwound in our life. And you're at the front end of that, and you're sort of like, it's fascinating to me. Is there anything else about your health that you think is important?
Community. It doesn't always have family is part of the community, friends is part of the community. Just having a community.
We had that, didn't we? You did this wonderful video that you'd edited together. It was on the last day of the first year or thereabouts. And it was really profound because you'd taken photos and your peers had taken photos and you put them all together to music. And it showed the power of the community in sort of learning. And that learning isn't just what we do in the classroom, it extends outside of that, and how that sort of held your cohort together. It's fascinating. And really emotional as well.
It was, made me cry, and I was
it was good. It was good editing. Well done.
And you played along, thank you, because we planned it together, and everyone was wondering, why are you taking pictures, but they had no idea. if you think about it, we always leave our autobiographies, or people leave autobiographies in the later stages of their lives, or maybe when something profound has happened. But why? Why can't you start telling your stories now, compiling it? And it might not make sense to you now, but somebody maybe 50 years after you've gone would pick that little paper or that blog post and see, oh, there was a Jason Corner who talked about personhood across the lifespan. And to them, it would be fascinating. It would be mind-blowing. But to you, it's just...
Do you think there's an issue? So when we start, right at the start, we talked about the different online personalities you might have. So LinkedIn has this kind of particular tone, which is understandable because it's kind of like this professional. Facebook probably definitely has its own tone. Instagram has its own tone. TikTok, all of those things have a slightly different. And I sometimes sort of look at them and think, is that the story? I think it's all right. Like in terms of the story I want to sort of tell of my life. But do you think there's any problem with that in terms of authenticity?
No, I don't think so. I feel like you can be different people. I was I was coming for the podcast and I decided to rehearse with my brother, like just have a free flow of conversation with me. And he said he read my post on the storytelling one and he really liked it. And he liked it on LinkedIn. Then he realized, oh my God, this is LinkedIn. And then he unliked. And he said, I don't want my personal business out there. And that was okay for me. Because we want to portray, we want to portray different aspects of us. And it's all right to do that. That's another form of authenticity. As long as it's still you, you're not being somebody else, but it's a different version of you.
I suppose it's what people are doing with it. I've got past the point of caring now, but I used to I'd upload Twitter and then I'd delete it every 4 months because when you like something, you're creating this sort of likes profile and you're thinking, well, that could be taken out of context. And and you worry about this sort of map of beliefs that you're leaving sort of imprinted on there. Sometimes on LinkedIn, I'll like something, I just think, I'm like a little tinker, I think that'll throw them off the scent. I also think that with the social media platforms, essentially the general theme should be the same. I mean, don't be a professional on LinkedIn and then on Twitter you're bashing the government. Well, I mean, it depends on what you want to be, but do not be someone who is negative on one social media and then you pretend to be positive on another. That is where it's not authentic. That's interesting. So it's almost like you've got these central sort of train tracks, but then you've got these strands that come out in relation to these different LinkedIn professional, Facebook family, and those. And
exactly.
I like that. That's
Facebook
nice.
is family. I can share stuff about my family. LinkedIn is like my professional life. Twitter is about conversations with maybe debates, healthy debates. Twitter is mind-blowing.
It is mind-blowing.
Sometimes I go on Twitter and I'm like, slow down. Do you do Twitter too? Do you?
Yeah, I'm stealth. You won't find me.
Really, on Twitter?
Yeah, I don't, because it's so LinkedIn. Is very professional, my Facebook, I think most people should accept that anything that's on Facebook is kind of your jokey family side, so I kind of feel like that's separate enough that if I've made a funny joke and it's a little bit on the edge, it's none of anyone's business other than the people who are my mates. Whereas Twitter's an odd one. Twitter's somewhere in the middle where you're still this sort of work persona, but you're also your private persona, and I think it's where you've got so many things that are about morality and beliefs, which I find fascinating.
You do.
But I think it's a tenuous area, so I'm stealth.
If you think about
that's everyone on Twitter. Where is he?
Did I search for you? I think I did. Maybe I didn't find you on Twitter.
Nah, you won't.
But I found you on Facebook. And I really enjoyed your Facebook post because it just really showed Jason in another light.
Just humour.
Jason the runner, the father. And it was so nice.
I got told off though. Someone I really respect, he's passed away now, but he was someone I really looked up to. He's my father's best friend.
Okay.
And he said he had to mute me on Facebook because of some of my jovial posts. And it did make me think. It made me think, like, there was a bit of me that was being provocative, that version of my, a little bit with my humour. And then I thought, hold on a minute, there is, he's someone I really admired. And that sort of like, that hurt me a little bit, that perhaps in my deliberate attempt to be a bit on the edge, that I'd offended him. I'm sure he's all right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So adventure, community, and...
Are these the 3 words as well?
Which one of them? LinkedIn?
No, the 3 words that I'm going to ask you.
Adventure, community, and the third one.
I'm glad you're keeping on track because I
think I ran out of things to say about social media, and maybe that's why I came back to the third one would be, what would it be, Jason? Give me one. What do you think about me? How would you describe me?
I've been getting this wrong. So when people came in, the first person that came in was Martin, and I thought that everyone would be saying, I don't know, like family, or I thought that would come up more. Hasn't come up at all. People have been coming up with really, it's made me think really deeply about how health is definitely different. Like no one has said even close to the same 3 things.
Wow.
And also people are just keep coming up with words that if I was writing down all the synonyms to describe health, 90% of the words people are coming up with wouldn't be there. Like adventure, I wouldn't really, if you were coming through the door and you said, what are my 3 words going to be? Community I might have got.
Yeah. But adventure,
no, I wouldn't have got that. But I understand it now because it's sort of like your story that you're telling. The third one, no, I don't know. Peace, yeah? Okay. Yeah. That's not
I think in the midst of the adventure, you might come across things, and sometimes, just like you said, just accept things and just let things be. I think that's like the serenity of it. And you find that in health, on the wards, there are certain things like, there's no cure for this, or you've been given, it's palliative, he would be passing away soon. And sometimes I think about it, and I hope in my heart that they're not struggling with it, that they've come to accept that this is happening, and they just let it be.
And that is doing something.
Yeah.
That sort of acceptance and peace, it seems like it's not an action, but it is.
Yeah. Sometimes I think about it and I say, if I'm to die now, would I be happy?
That would be so awkward.
But because I used to be very paranoid, Jason. I've changed. Like, someone told me nursing would change you, and I said, maybe not. But nursing did change me because I was very paranoid. I don't know if you noticed in the first year, I was very anxious. When we have mental health classes and we're talking about something severe, I'm like, because my mind goes far, this could be me, this could be me, this could be me. But I started to accept, and I started to, and it changed me. And now I always ask myself, if the worst would happen, how would I feel? I'll be at peace. Knowing fully well that I did what I could do, and the things I couldn't change, I let it be.
Wonderful. Okay.
Thank you.
I think that's a wonderful place
to end it.
Yeah, fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming to talk to me. I think it's very brave.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's
and I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, and you can find Praise's blog on LinkedIn.
slim-ideas.com.
Boom.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
So thanks for listening.
Thank you.